So it's
Hello? Is this thing on? Hello? Is it on? Testing? Is anyone home? This is a test broadcast. Is anybody out there? Hello? Is there a soul to be found out in the wilderness on today's day? Perhaps. Just waiting for the live stream to start. Is it on? I think it's on. Okay. So we're going to be watching the debate. I've got it open on C-SPAN. We're going to be playing bingo. Everybody. So here we have the bingo board. So feel free to peruse the bingo board. We got a bingo board. So, is this on? Is it on? Wait, hold on. Is it on? What? It's not on. Are you sure? I'm pretty... No.
The former U.S. president as their party's presumptive nominees, a first in American history. We want to welcome our viewers in the United States and around the world to our studios in Atlanta. This is the CNN presidential debate.
This debate is being produced by CNN and is coming to you live on CNN, CNN International, CNN.com, CNN Max, and CNN Espanol. This is a pivotal moment between President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump in their rematch for the nation's highest office. Each will make his case to the American people with just over 4 months until Election Day. Good evening, I'm Dana Bash, anchor of CNN's Inside Politics and co-anchor of State of the Union.
Is this on?
I'm Jake Tapper, anchor of CNN's The Lead and co-anchor of State of the Union. Dana and I will co-moderate this evening. Our job is to facilitate a debate between the two candidates tonight.
Is it on?
Before we introduce them, we want to share the rules of the debate with the audience at home. Former President Trump will be on the left side of the screen. President Biden will be appearing on the right. A coin toss determined their positions.
As if
each candidate will have 2 minutes to answer a question and 1 minute each for responses and rebuttals. An additional minute for follow-up, clarification, or response is at the moderator's discretion.
When it's time for a candidate to speak, his microphone will be turned on.
Why do they always have the same? You ever know that they have the same debate music?
Should a candidate interrupt when his microphone is muted, it will be difficult to understand for viewers at home. At the end of the debate, each candidate will get 2 minutes for closing statements. There is no studio audience tonight. Pre-written notes, props, or contact with campaign staff are not permitted during the debate.
By the way, if the stream gets shut down,
our invitation to debate both candidates and their campaigns, agreed to accept.
I'm not going to fight for it. I'm just going to watch the rest myself.
Please welcome the 46th President of the United States, Joe Biden.
No, here he comes.
Folks, how are you?
So here once again is the bingo board.
Great to be here. Thank you.
And please welcome the 45th President of the United States, Donald Trump.
Yeah, I have the
thanks so much for being here. Let's
feed
begin
is like
the
this
debate,
to
and let's
avoid
start
copyright
with the issue
issues.
that voters consistently say is their top concern, the economy. President Biden, inflation has slowed, but prices remain high. Since he took office, the price of essentials has increased. For example, a basket of groceries that cost $100 then now costs more than $120. And typical home prices have jumped more than 30%. What do you say to voters who feel they are worse off under your presidency than they were under President Trump?
We got to take a look at what I was left when I became president and what Mr. Trump left me. We had an economy that was in free fall. The pandemic was so badly handled. Many people were dying. All he said was, it's not that serious. Just inject a little bleach into your arm. You'll be all right. The economy collapsed. There were no jobs. Unemployment rate rose to 15%. It was terrible. And so what we had to do is try to put things back together again. And that's exactly what we began to do. We created 15,000 new jobs. We brought out a position where we have 800,000 new manufacturing jobs. But there's more to be done. There's more to be done. Working class people are still in trouble. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania. I come of a household where the kitchen table, if the things weren't able to be met during the month, it was a problem. Price of eggs, the price of gas, the price of housing, the price of a whole range of things. That's why I'm working so hard to make sure I deal with those problems. And we're going to make sure that we reduce the price of housing. We're going to make sure we build 2 million new units. We're going to make sure we cap
2
rents
million new
so
units.
corporate greed
Holy
can't
shit.
take over. The combination,
2 million.
what I was left with in corporate greed is the reason why we're in this problem right now. In addition to that, we're in a situation where if you take a look at all that was done in his administration, he didn't do much at all. By the time he left, things were in chaos, literally chaos.
Look at Trump's
And so we
fucking
put things back
face.
together. We created, I said, those jobs. We make sure we had a situation where we brought down the price of prescription drugs, which is a major issue for many people, to $15 for a insulin shot as
Hello,
opposed to
Sandy.
$400.
And goodbye.
No senior has to pay more than $200 for any drug, all the drugs they can include beginning next year. And the situation is and we're going to make that available to everybody. To all
You know, I'm
Americans.
not gonna lie,
So we're
what the
working to
fuck
bring
is
down
this
the
guy
price
talking
around
about?
the kitchen table, and that's what we're
Kitchen
going to get
table
done.
again.
Thank you, President Trump.
We have the greatest economy in the history of our country. We have never done so well. Everybody was amazed by it. Other countries were copying us. We got hit with COVID. And when we did, we spent the money necessary so we wouldn't end up in a Great Depression, the likes of which we had in 1929. By the time we finished, so we did a great job. We got a lot of credit for the economy, a lot of credit for the military, and no wars, and so many other things. Everything was rocking good. But the thing we never got the credit for, and we should have, is getting us out of that COVID mess. He created mandates that was a disaster for our country. But other than that, we had given them
There
back
was no mandate?
a country
never
where
happened?
the stock market actually was higher than pre-COVID, and nobody thought that was even possible.
The mandate was
the only
get it
jobs he created
or
are for
don't.
illegal
That's not a
immigrants
mandate?
and
There
bounce
was no
back
mandate?
jobs, a bounce back from the COVID. He has not done a good job. He's done a poor job, and inflation's killing our country. It is absolutely killing us.
Thank you, President Biden.
Well, look, the greatest economy in the world. He's the only one who thinks that, I think. I don't know anybody else who thinks he had the greatest economy in the world. And, you know, the fact of the matter is that we find ourselves in a situation where his economy, he rewarded the wealthy. He had the largest tax cut in American history, $2 trillion. He raised a deficit larger than any president has in any one term. He's the only president other than Herbert Hoover who's lost more jobs than he had when he began, since Herbert Hoover. The idea that he did something that was significant. And the military, you know, when he was president, they were still killing people in Afghanistan. He didn't do anything about that. When he was president, we were still finding ourselves in a position where you had a notion that we were this safe country. The truth is,
What the fuck
I'm the
is
only
this guy
president
talking about?
this
What is
century
he talking
that
about?
doesn't have any, this decade,
What?
that doesn't have any troops
Okay.
dying anywhere in the world
I'm
like
sorry.
he did.
I gotta. He's
President
losing
Trump,
his ability
I want
to talk.
follow
I'm
up
sorry.
if I can. You
Am I
want
allowed
to
to respond to him?
Well, I'm going to ask you a
can't-
follow-up. You can do whatever you
can't
want with the
follow
minutes
this
that we give you.
horse shit. What is he-
I want to follow up. You want to impose a 10% tariff on all goods coming into the U.S. How will you ensure that that doesn't drive prices even higher?
It's not going to drive them higher. It's just going to cost countries that have been ripping us off for years, like China and many others, in all fairness to China.
China.
It's going to just force them to pay us a lot of money, reduce our deficit tremendously, and give us a lot of power for other things. But he made a statement. The only thing he was right about is I gave you the largest tax cut in history. I also gave you the largest regulation cut in history. That's why
Who's
we had
you,
all the
by the
jobs.
way?
And the jobs went down, and then they bounced back, and he's taking credit for bounce back
Nope, they
jobs. You
bounced
can't
back.
do that. He also
You
said
can't do that.
He inherited 9% inflation. No, he inherited almost no inflation, and it stayed
She's
that
like,
way
"You
for
can't do
14
it."
months. And then it blew up under
it's
his
against the
leadership because
rules.
they spent money like
Can't
a
take
bunch
credit.
of people that didn't know what they were doing, and they don't know what they were doing. It was the worst, probably the worst administration in history. There's never been. And as far as Afghanistan is concerned, I was getting out of Afghanistan, but we were getting out with dignity, with strength, with power. He got out. It was the most embarrassing day in the history of our country's life.
President Trump, over the last 8
whole
years under
history?
both of your administrations, the national debt soared to record highs. And according to a new nonpartisan analysis, President Trump, your administration approved $8.4 trillion in new debt, while so far, President Biden, you've approved $4.3 trillion in new debt. So, former President Trump, many of the tax cuts that
fucking
you signed
cares
into
about
law
the
are
debt,
set to
dude?
expire
What are we
next
doing
year.
here?
You want to extend them and go even
Can
further,
you hear me, by the
say.
way? Am I
With the
audible?
U.S. facing trillion-dollar deficits and record debt,
How's the
why
audio
should
balance?
top earners and
reading the
corporations
chat,
pay
so let
even
me
less
know.
in taxes than they do now?
Because the tax cuts spurred the greatest economy that we've ever seen just prior to COVID. And even after COVID, it was so strong that we were able to get through COVID much better than just about any other country.
Interesting.
But we spurred, that tax spurred. Now, when we cut the taxes, as an example, the corporate tax was cut down to 21% from 39%, plus beyond that. We took in more revenue with much less tax, and companies
Who
were
gives a
bringing
fuck
back
about
trillions
tax
of
rates?
dollars back
No one
into
cares
our
about
country.
this.
The
Nobody
country
gives a fuck.
was
Why are we
going
starting
like
all
never
of this
before.
horse shit with
And
tax
we were ready
rates?
to start paying down
What
debt.
is
We
this,
were
a
ready to start
fucking,
using
like,
the
is this
liquid
the-
gold
a
right under our
challenge
feet.
to bore the
oil and
shit
gas
out of
right
anybody
under our
that
feet.
tunes in?
We were going to have something
Tax
that nobody
rates?
else
Are you
has
fucking
had.
kidding me?
We got hit with COVID. We did a lot to fix it. I gave him an unbelievable situation with all of the therapeutics and all of the things that we came up with. We gave him something great. Remember, more people died under his administration, even though we had largely fixed it.
That's
More
not true.
people died under his administration
Now, that
than our
is true.
administration, and we were right
Joe
in the middle
Biden
of
is
it.
worse
Something
on
which a lot
COVID
of
than
people
Trump.
don't like to
That's
talk
true.
about. But he had far more people dying in his administration.
And people are
He
still
did the
dying
mandate,
now.
which is a disaster, mandating it.
There was no
the
mandate?
vaccine
That
went
never
out. He
happened?
did a mandate on the
The
vaccine,
mandate
which
said
is the
either
thing
get
that
the vaccine
people
or
most
test.
objected
That's not
to
a
about the
mandate.
vaccine.
If you can
And he
choose
did
not
a
to
very
get the
poor
vaccine, it's
job,
not a
just
mandate.
a very poor job.
not
And I
real.
will tell you, not only poor there, but throughout the entire world, we're no longer respected as a country. They don't respect our leadership. They don't respect the United States anymore. We're like a third world nation between weaponization of his election, trying to go after his political opponent, all of the things he's done. We've become like a third world nation, and it's a shame. The damage
these are the
he's done
two
to
guys
our country,
who
and
are
I'd
in
love to
charge
ask
of that
him, and will,
project
why he
of
allowed
making us a
millions of
third world
people to come in
nation.
here
These are
from
the guys
prisons,
that are doing
jails,
it,
and
so.
mental institutions to come into our country and destroy our country.
President Trump, we will get to immigration later in this block. President
count as
Biden,
Trump
I want to give
losing
you an opportunity to respond to
his
this
ability
question
to
about
speak?
the national debt.
He had the largest national debt of any president in a 4-year period, number one. Number two, that $2 trillion tax cut benefited the very wealthy. What I'm going to do is fix the tax system. For example,
Oh, he's going to
we
do
had
that?
1,000 trillionaires
He
in
didn't
America.
do it yet, but he's
I mean,
going to.
billionaires in America. And what's happening? They're in a situation where
Did he
they
say
in fact
1,000
pay
trillionaires?
8.2% in taxes. If they just paid 24%,
that?
25%, either one of those numbers, they'd raise $500 billion, I should say, in a 10-year period. We'd be able to wipe out his debt. We'd be able to help make sure that all those things we need to do, child care, elder care, making sure that we continue to strengthen our health care system, making sure that we're able to make
These
every
guys have been
single
saying the
solitary
same thing for like
person
8 years now.
eligible for what I've been able to do with the with the COVID. Excuse me, with
Oh, Jesus.
dealing with everything we have to do with.
Trump's face.
Look,
No,
if
no,
we
no,
finally beat Medicare,
no,
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
no.
He's right. He did beat Medicare. He beat it to death, and he's destroying Medicare because all of these people are coming in. They're putting them on Medicare. They're putting them on Social Security. They're going to destroy Social Security. This man is going to single-handedly destroy
It's
Social
over, guys.
Security.
Trump
These
wins.
millions
It's
and
done.
millions of people
It's
coming
done.
in. They're trying to put them on Social Security.
Oh,
He will
man.
wipe out Social Security. He will wipe out Medicare. So he was right in the way he finished that sentence. And it's a
Biden
shame.
looks like
What's
he's
happened
about
our
to
country
die. He's
in
about
the
to
last
keel
4
over.
years is not to be
Oh.
believed. Foreign countries, I'm friends with a lot of people. They cannot believe what happened to the United States of America. We're no longer respected.
He's gonna
They-
fucking pass
They don't
out.
like us. We give them everything they want, and they think we're stupid. They think we're very stupid people. What we're doing for other countries, and they do nothing for us. What this man has done is absolutely criminal.
Thank you, President Trump.
But
Dana?
neither have
This
done
is the
anything.
first
That's really
presidential
the-
election since the Supreme Court overturned Roe v. Wade. This morning, the court ruled on yet another abortion case, temporarily allowing emergency abortions to continue in Idaho, despite that state's restrictive ban. Former President Trump, you take credit for the decision to overturn Roe v. Wade, which returned the issue of abortion to the states.
Correct.
However,
Correct.
the federal government still
thought the
plays
mics
a
were
role
supposed to be
in
off.
whether or not women have access to abortion pills. They're used in about 2/3 of all abortions. As president, would you block abortion medication?
First of all, the Supreme Court just approved the abortion bill, and I agree with their decision to have done that, and I will not block it. And if you look at this whole question that you're asking, complex but not really complex. 51 years ago, you had Roe v. Wade, and everybody wanted to get it back to the states. Everybody, without exception. Democrats, Republicans, liberals, conservatives. Everybody wanted it back. Religious leaders. And what I did is I put 3 great Supreme Court justices on the court, and they happened to vote in favor of killing Roe v. Wade.
The Supreme Court
and moving it
legalized
back to the
bribery
states.
for
This is
themselves
something
today,
that
by the way.
everybody wanted. Now, 10 years ago or so, they started talking about how many weeks and how many this, getting into other things. But every legal scholar throughout the world, the most respected, wanted it brought back to the states. I did that. Now the states are working it out. If you look at Ohio, it was a decision that was
Biden,
it was a,
look
an
at his
end result that was a little bit more liberal than you would have thought.
Look at his eyeballs,
Kansas,
man.
I would say the same thing. Texas is different. Florida is different. But they're all making their own decisions right now. And right now, the states control it. That's the vote of the people. Like Ronald Reagan, I believe in the exceptions. I am a person that believes. And frankly, I think it's important to believe in the exceptions. Some people, you have to follow your heart. Some people don't believe in that. But I believe in the exceptions for rape, incest, and the life of the mother. I think it's very important.
Life of the mother.
Some people don't. Follow your heart. But you have to get elected also. And because that has to do with other things. You got to get elected. The problem
He's just
they
talking
have is
to his
they're
base
radical
right now.
because they will
Come on, guys.
take the life of a child in
Let me
the
say
8th
this
month,
one.
the
Come on,
9th month, and
guys.
even after birth. After birth, if you look at the former governor of Virginia, he
I
was
just want to say
willing
this
to
for
do this.
posterity.
He said, we'll put the baby aside.
I don't
and
really
we'll
identify
determine
as a
what we do with the
Democrat,
baby,
but I do
meaning we'll kill
agree
the baby.
with after
What
birth
happened is
abortion.
we brought it back to
So,
the states, and the country is
I
now
wish the Democrats
coming together
were
on
in
this issue.
favor
It's
of
been a great
post-birth
thing.
abortion.
Thank you.
That'd
President
be
Biden.
awesome.
It's been a terrible thing, what you've done. The fact is that the vast majority of constitutional scholars supported Roe when it was decided. Supported Roe. And that's this idea that they're all against it is just ridiculous. And this is the guy who says the state should be able to have it. We're in a state where in 6 weeks, you don't even know whether you're pregnant or not, but you cannot see a doctor, and have him decide on what your circumstances are, whether you need help. The idea that states are able to do this is a little like saying we're going to turn civil rights back to the states. Let each state have a different rule. Look, there's so many young women who have been, including a young woman who just was murdered, and he went to the funeral. The idea that she was murdered by an immigrant coming in. They talk about that, but here's the deal.
I don't know.
There's a lot of young women are being raped by their in-laws, by their spouses, brothers and sisters, it's just ridiculous, and they can do nothing about it. And they try to arrest them when they cross state lines.
Thank you.
There have been many young women murdered by the same people he allows to come across our border.
No, open borders.
We have a border that's the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. Consider the most dangerous place anywhere in the world. And he opened it up, and these killers are coming into our country, and they are raping and killing women. And it's a terrible thing. As far as the abortion is concerned, it is now back with the states. The states are voting. In many cases, it's frankly a very liberal decision. In many cases, it's the opposite. But they're voting, and it's bringing it back to the vote of the people, which is what everybody wanted, including the founders, if they knew about this issue, which, frankly, they didn't. But they would have. Everybody wanted brought back.
The
Ronald
founders
Reagan wanted it
didn't
brought
know
back. He wasn't
about
able
abortion?
to get it. Everybody wanted it brought back, and many presidents had tried to get it back. I was the one to do it. And again, this gives it the vote of the people, and that's where they wanted it. Every legal scholar wanted it that way.
That's a shame.
Staying on the topic of abortion, President Biden, 7 states, I'll let you do that. This is the same topic. 7 states have no legal restrictions on how far into a pregnancy
So far, my
a woman
stream
can
has not
obtain
been
an
taken
abortion.
down. So,
do you support any legal limits on how late a woman should be able to terminate a pregnancy?
I supported Roe v. Wade, which had 3 trimesters. First time is between the woman and the doctor. Second time is between the doctor and an extreme situation. The third time is between the doctor, between the woman and the state. The idea that the politicians that the founders wanted the politicians to be the ones making decisions about women's health is ridiculous. That's the last. No politician should be making that decision. A doctor should be making those decisions. That's how it should be run. That's what you're going to do. And if I'm elected, I'm going
That's
to
the thing
restore Roe
is
v. Wade.
Biden.
So that
He's
means
correct
he can
here, but
take the life of the baby in the 9th month and even after birth, because some states, Democrat run, take
What
it
is
after
Trump
birth.
fucking-
Again, the governor, former
Oh,
governor
man.
of Virginia.
what is
put the
after
baby
birth?
down, then we decide
What are they?
to
Are they
do
going to
with it.
fact
So
check
he's
this
in-
dumbass?
he's
What is
willing to,
after
as we
birth?
say,
That's
rip
not
the
real.
baby out of the womb in the 9th month
that's
and
not
kill the baby.
real.
Nobody wants that to happen.
He's just
Democrat
making
or
it up.
Republican. Nobody wants it to happen.
He's just making it up, man.
That is simply not true.
Oh, the mics are
That Roe
cut.
v. Wade
Okay.
does not provide for that.
Alright.
That's not the circumstance.
Mics
Only
are
if a
cut.
woman's life is in danger, she's going to die. That's the only circumstance in which that can happen. But we are not for late-term abortion, period. Period, period.
Under Roe v. Wade, you have late-term abortion. You can do whatever you want, depending on the state.
at
You can do
Biden's
good
mouth.
you want. We don't think
He's in
that's a good
shock.
thing.
He's
We
in
think it's a
horror.
radical thing. We think the Democrats are the radicals, not the Republicans.
For 51 years, that was the law. 51 years, constitutional scholarship said it was the right way to go. 51 years, and it was taken away because this guy put very conservative members on the Supreme Court. He takes
just
credit
call
for
them
taking
Nazis,
it away.
man.
What's he going to do? What's he going to do? In fact, if the MAGA Republicans, he gets
Oh, MAGA
elected, and the
Republicans.
MAGA Republicans control the Congress,
That's another
and
bingo
they pass a universal
me.
ban on abortion, period,
Here's a-
across the board at 6 weeks or 7 or 8 or 10 weeks, something very, very conservative. Is he going to sign that bill? I'll veto it. He'll sign it.
Thank you.
Let's turn now to the issue of immigration and border security. President Biden, a record number of migrants have illegally crossed the southern border on your watch. Overwhelming border
He
states
just
and
did one of the
overburdening
most
cities such as New York
right-wing
and Chicago, and
executive
in some
orders of
cases
all
causing
time.
real safety and security
What are we
concerns.
talking about?
Given that, why should voters trust you to solve this crisis?
It's a completely
Because we worked very
manufactured
hard to
crisis.
get a
It's not real.
bipartisan
There is no
agreement
fucking
that not
crisis
only
at the border.
changed
With
all of that,
these motherfuckers are
made
living
sure
in the
that
twilight
we are in
zone.
a situation where you had no circumstance where they could come across the border with the number of border police there are now. We significantly increased the number of asylum officers. Significantly.
We're only
By the way,
20
the Border
minutes in.
Patrol endorsed me.
We're only 20
endorsed my
minutes.
position. In addition to that, we found ourselves in a situation
still
where,
so much to
when he was
go.
president, he was taking,
Only 20
separating babies
minutes in.
from their mothers, putting them in cages, making sure they were, the families were separated.
Joe Biden has
That's not the
restricted
right way to go.
immigration
What I've done since
more than
I've
Trump.
changed the law, what's happened? I've changed it in a way that
What is he
now
talking about?
you're in a situation where there are 40% fewer people coming across the border illegally. That's better than when he left office. And I'm going to
What?
continue to move until we get the total ban on the total initiative relative to what we can do with
Oh, the
more
total
border patrol
ban.
and more asylum
What?
officers.
President
What?
Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our country. The border, all he had to do was leave it. All he had to do was leave it. He decided to open up our border, open up our country
No.
to
No, he
people
didn't do
that
that,
are
but that's bingo.
from prisons, people that are from mental institutions, insane asylum, terrorists. We have the largest number of terrorists coming into our country right now. All terrorists,
Goddamn
all over the
MS-13.
world, not just in South America.
They're
all
coming
over the
in, they're
world. They
marching
come
through the
from
border
Middle
right
East,
now,
everywhere,
MS-13.
all over the world. They're pouring in.
They're pouring
This
in.
guy just left it open,
not
and he
true.
didn't need legislation.
None of this
because
is
I didn't
true.
have
What the fuck
legislation.
are
I
these
said
guys
close
on
the
about?
border. We had the
Look at-
safest
look at
border in
Biden's
history.
face.
In that final couple
Biden
of months
looks like
of
he's
my
about to get
presidency,
shot.
we had, according
at
to
him.
Border Patrol, who is great, and by the way, who endorsed me for president, but I won't say that, but they endorsed me
But
for president.
What?
Brandon, you speak to him. But look, we had the safest border in history.
This is not
Now we have
good.
the worst border in history. There's never been
Guys,
anything
I think
like
Trump
it.
is
And
gonna
people
win.
are dying all over the place, including the people that
It's
are
not
coming
good.
up in
Thank you, President
caravans.
Trump. President Biden?
The only terrorist who's done anything across the border
Here we
is
go.
one who came along and killed three, under his administration, killed an Al-Qaeda person come in his administration,
Oh, no.
killed
Oh, no.
3
Oh, no.
American soldiers,
Oh, no.
killed 3 American soldiers.
Oh, God.
That's the only terrorist that's there. I'm not saying that no
What?
terrorist ever got through, but the idea they're emptying their prisons, we're welcoming these
What?
people. That's simply not true. There's no data to support what he said. Once again, he's exaggerating. He's lying.
President Trump, staying on the topic of immigration, you've said that you're
Horrible
going to carry out,
response.
quote, the largest domestic deportation
my
operation in
God.
American history, unquote.
This is
Does
hard
that
to
mean that you
watch.
will deport every undocumented immigrant in America, including those who have jobs, including those whose spouses
I'm watching
are
as much as I
citizens,
can,
and including those
but
who have
it
lived
is
here
hard
for
to
decades?
watch.
And if so, How will you do it?
Just 1 second. He said we killed 3 people. The people we killed are al-Baghdadi and Soleimani, the 2 greatest terrorists, biggest terrorists anywhere in the world, and it had a huge impact on everything.
What are
not
these
just
fucking
border,
people
on
talking
everything.
about?
He's the one that killed people with the bad water, including hundreds of thousands of people
What are they
dying,
talking about?
and also
What is
killing
happening?
our citizens when they come in. We are living right now in a rat's nest. They're killing our people in New York, in California.
What are
in
these
every
fucking?
state
What
in
is
the
this
union, because we don't
planet
have
where
borders
like there's
anymore. Every
fucking
state is now
immigrants
a
with
border.
machine
And
guns
because of
walking
his
through the
ridiculous,
streets murdering
insane
people?
and very stupid
What are
policies,
these fucking
people are
guys
coming in and
talking
they're
about,
killing
man?
our citizens at a level that we've never seen. We call it migrant crime. I call it Biden migrant crime. They're killing our citizens at a level that we've never seen before. And you're reading it like
This
these
is
3
horrible.
incredible young girls over the last
is
few
horrible.
days. One of them, I just spoke to the mother, and they just had the funeral for this girl, 12 years old. This is horrible what's taken place. What's taken place in our
What are
country,
these fucking people
we're
talking
literally
about?
an uncivilized country now.
I
He
can't
doesn't
with
want it to be.
Biden's
He just
faces,
doesn't know.
man.
He opened the borders. Nobody's ever seen anything like. And we have to get a lot of these people out, and we have to get them out fast.
Biden's border
because they're gonna
policies have
destroy our
been
country.
almost
Just
as
take a look at where
right-wing
they're
as
living.
Trump, if
they're
not
living
more.
in luxury hotels in New York City and other places.
What
Our
are these
veterans
guys
are on the
lo-
street.
like?
They're
They are
dying
living
because he
in the
doesn't care about our
Twilight
veterans.
Zone?
He doesn't care. He doesn't like the military at all, and he doesn't care about our veterans. Nobody been worse. I had the highest approval rating for veterans taking care of the VA. He has the worst. He's gotten rid of all the things that I approved. Choice that I got through Congress, all of the different things I approved, they abandoned. We had by far the highest, and now it's down in less
What are
than
they
half
talking about?
because
The
he's done all
highest
these
what?
great things that we did.
What
and
are
I think
they
he did it
fucking-
just because I approved it, which is crazy. But he has killed so many people at our border by
Thank you,
allowing
President Trump.
all of these people to come in.
President
and it's a
Biden.
very
Who
sad
the
day
fuck has
in
been
America.
President Biden,
killed
you
by
have the
the
mic.
border?
Every single thing he said is a lie.
Now that I
Every
agree
single
with.
one.
I
For
agree with that
example,
one, Joe.
Veterans are a hell of a lot better off since I passed the PACT Act. 1 million of them now
PACT
have insurance, and their families have it. Their families have it because what happened, whether it was Agent Orange or burn pits, they're all being covered now. And his group opposed that. We're also in a situation where
group?
we have great respect for veterans. My son spent a year in Iraq, living right next to one of those burn pits, came back with stage 4 glioblastoma. I was recently in France for D-Day, and I spoke all about those heroes that died. I went to the World War I cemetery he refused to go to. He was standing with his 4-star general, and he told me, he said, I don't want to go in there because they're a bunch of losers and suckers. My son was not a loser, was not a sucker. You're the sucker. You're the loser.
President Trump.
Oh God, Biden!
First of all, that was a made-up quote, suckers and losers. They made it up. It was in a third-rate magazine that's failing, like many of these magazines.
You're a
He made
sucker
that
and
up.
you're a
He
loser.
put it in commercials. We've notified him. We had 19 people that said I didn't say it. And think of this. Who would
19
say
people?
I'm at a cemetery or I'm talking about our veterans? Because nobody's taken better care. I'm so glad this came up, and he brought it up.
Biden
There's
looks like
nobody
a deer
that's
in
taken better
headlights.
care of our
Look at
soldiers than
him.
I have.
Can you see
To
this?
think that I
Look at
would,
his
in front of
face.
generals and others, say suckers and losers. We have 19 people that said it was never said by me. It was made up by him, just like Russia was made
Oh
up.
my
Just like the
God, what the
51
fuck
intelligence
are they talking
agents
about?
are made up. Just like the new thing with the 16 economists are talking. It's the same thing. 51 intelligence
16
agents said
economists?
that the laptop was Russia disinformation. It wasn't. That came from his son, Hunter.
Oh,
it wasn't
Hunter.
Russia disinformation.
Hunter.
He made up the suckers and losers.
I don't know,
He
Bo.
should
I know
apologize
Hunter.
to me right now.
4-star general standing to your side who was on your staff who said you said it, period. That's number one. And number two, the
fucking
idea,
cares?
the idea that I have to apologize to you for anything along the line. We've done more for veterans than any president has in American history. American history. And they now are in their family. The only sacred obligation we have as a country is to care for our veterans when they come home and their families and equip them when they go to war. That's what we're doing. That's what the VA is doing now. They're doing more for veterans than ever before in our history.
All right, thank you so much.
To the topic of foreign policy,
This is
I want to
horrible.
begin with Russia's war against Ukraine, which is now in its third year. Former President Trump, Russian President Vladimir Putin
I'm not
going
gonna
to
lie, though, I
only
think the
end
moderators
this war if
are on
Russia
Trump's
keeps
side.
the
That's what it
Ukrainian
feels like.
territory it has already claimed, and
just
Ukraine
feels like, you know,
abandons
they're
its
going
bid
with him
to
first.
join NATO. Are Putin's terms acceptable to you?
First of all, our veterans and our soldiers
Oh, the
can't
pointing.
stand this guy.
The pointing.
They can't stand him. They think he's
Oh,
the
the
worst
pointing.
commander-in-chief, if that's what you call him, that we've ever had. They can't stand him. So let's get that straight. And they
Oh,
like me
give
more
me a
than
break.
just about any of them.
Look.
And that's based on
Look at
every
mine.
single
Okay,
bit of
okay, he's
information.
smiling now.
As far as Russia and Ukraine, if we had a real president, the president that knew, that was respected by Putin, he would have never invaded Ukraine. A lot of people are dead right now, much more than people know. You know, they talk about numbers. You can double those numbers, maybe triple those numbers.
They talk about numbers.
He did nothing to stop it. In fact, I think he encouraged Russia from going in. I'll tell you what happened. He was so bad with Afghanistan. It was such a horrible embarrassment, most embarrassing moment in the history of our country. That
Really? The
when Putin
most
watched that
embarrassing?
and he saw the incompetence, that he should have fired those generals, like I fired the one that you mentioned. And so he's got no love lost. But he should have fired those generals. No general got fired
Biden's
for the
talking to
most
Ghost again.
embarrassing moment in the history of our country, Afghanistan, where we left billions of dollars of equipment behind. We lost 13 beautiful soldiers, and 38 soldiers were obliterated. And by the way, we left people behind, too. We left American citizens behind. When Putin saw that, he said, you know what? I think we're going to go in and maybe take my... This was his dream. I talked to him about it, his dream. The difference is he never would have invaded Ukraine. Never. Just like Israel would have never been invaded.
What, like,
In a
what is the
million years by
debate?
Hamas.
What are they debating?
You know why?
They're
Because
just
Iran
saying
was broke
Trump's
with
just
me. I
saying it
wouldn't let
wouldn't have
anybody do
happened.
business
It
with
wouldn't
them.
have
They ran out
happened.
of money. They were broke.
How
They had
was
no money for
where's the
Hamas.
debate?
They had
They're
no money for anything.
I don't understand
no
what
money
part
for
of this is a
That's why
debate.
you had no terror at all.
Trump is
during
just
my
like, under my
administration.
watch, it wouldn't
This
have
place,
happened.
The whole world is blowing up under him.
What's there to debate? It's just speculation. How is that a debate?
Never heard so much malarkey in my whole life. Look, the fact of the matter is that we're in a situation where, let's take the last point first.
We got malarkey.
Iran attacked American troops, caused brain damage for a number of these troops, and he did
Iran?
nothing about it.
What are we
Recently,
talking
not when he
about?
was president. They attacked.
Okay,
he said
right,
they're
right.
just having headaches. That's all it is. He didn't do a thing when the attack took place, number one. Number two, we got over 100,000 Americans and others out of Afghanistan during that airlift. Number three, we found ourselves in a situation where, if you take a look at what Trump did in Ukraine, this guy told Trump, do whatever you want, and do whatever you want. And that's exactly what Trump did to Putin, encourage him, do whatever you want.
Oh,
and
he
went in. Listen
confused
to what
Trump
he said
with
when he went
Putin.
in. He was going to take Kyiv in 5 days, remember? Because it's part of the old Soviet Union. That's what he wanted to reestablish.
He was
Kyiv.
mixing up
and he, in
Trump and
fact,
Putin.
didn't do it at all. He wasn't able to get it done. And they've lost thousands and thousands of troops, 500,000 troops.
President Trump,
I
if I
never
come back
said
to you
that.
Biden's
for
getting
1 minute,
cut
I just
off
want
so
to go back
much.
to my original question, which is, are Putin's terms acceptable to you? Keeping the
No, they're
territory
not
in Ukraine.
acceptable. No, they're not acceptable. But look, this is a war that never should have started. If we had a leader in this war, he led everybody along. He's given $200 billion now or more to Ukraine. He's given $200 billion. That's a lot of money. I don't think there's ever been anything like it. Every time that
lot of
Zelensky comes to this country, he walks away with $60 billion. He's the greatest salesman ever. And I'm not knocking him. I'm not knocking anything. I'm only saying
What?
the money that we're spending on this war.
I'm not knocking anything.
And we shouldn't be spending. It should have never happened. I will have that war settled between Putin and Zelensky as president-elect before I take office on January 20th. I'll have that war settled. People being killed so needlessly, so stupidly, and I will get it settled, and I'll get it settled fast before I take office.
President
know,
Biden, you have a minute.
The fact is that Putin is a war criminal. He's killed thousands and thousands of people. And he has made one thing clear. He wants to reestablish what was part of the Soviet Empire, not just a piece. He wants all of Ukraine. That's what he wants. And then you think he'll stop there? Do you think he'll stop when if he takes Ukraine? What do you think happens to Poland? What do you think of Belarus? What do you think happens to those NATO countries? And so if you want a war, you
I
ought
agree
to
with
find
Biden
out what
here,
he's
by the
going to
way.
do, because if in fact he does what he says and walks away, and by the way, All that money we give Ukraine are from weapons we make here in the United States. We give them the weapons, not the money at this point. And our NATO allies have produced as much funding for Ukraine as we have. That's why we're strong.
Thank you. Moving on to the Middle East. In October, Hamas
Now, this is going to be
attacked
brutal
Israel,
to watch.
killing more than 1,000 people
man.
and taking hundreds of hostages. Among those held and thought to still be alive are 5 Americans. Israel's response has killed thousands of Palestinians and created a humanitarian crisis in Gaza. President Biden, you've put forward a
Humanitarian
proposal
crisis?
to resolve this conflict, but so far Hamas has not released the remaining hostages, and Israel is continuing its military offensive in Gaza. So what additional
This is gonna be
leverage
horrible
will
to
you
watch.
use to get Hamas and Israel to end the war? You have 2 minutes.
Number one, everyone from the United Nations Security Council straight through to the G7 to the Israelis and Netanyahu himself have endorsed the plan I put forward. Endorsed the plan
That's
I
not
put
true.
forward.
Netanyahu
It's just 3
already
stages
threw
to
it in the garbage.
The
That's
first
not true.
stage is trade the hostages for a ceasefire. Second phase is a ceasefire with additional conditions. The third phase is the end of the war. The only one who wants the war to continue is Hamas.
That's not true.
Number one. They're the only ones standing out.
That's
We're
not
still
true.
pushing hard
There's a bunch of
to
horse
get them
shit.
to accept. In the meantime, what's happened?
I'm
In
excited for
Israel,
what
we're
Trump's
trying
going to
say.
say.
The only thing I've denied Israel was 2,000-pound bombs. They don't work very well in populated areas. They kill a lot of innocent people. We're providing Israel with all the weapons they need and when they need them. And by the
Goddamn.
way,
I
I'm the
hate
guy
living
that
here. I hate
organized
this country.
The world against Iran
This
when
is
they
such horse
had a
shit.
full-blown intercontinental ballistic missile attack on Israel. No one was hurt. No one Israeli was accidentally killed, and it
what is-
stopped. We saved
He's-
Israel. We are
he's
the biggest
losing his shit here?
producer of support for Israel of anyone in the world. And so they're 2 different things.
But then Trump's going to go
Hamas
even
cannot
more
be allowed to be
pro-Nazi
continued.
than this.
We continue to send our experts and our intelligence people as to how they can get Hamas like we did bin Laden. You don't have to do it. And by the way, they've been greatly weakened, Hamas, greatly weakened, and they should be. They should be eliminated.
This is
But
horrible
you've
to
got
watch.
to be
This
careful
is the
for
worst
what
thing.
using certain
We're only
weapons
36
among
minutes in.
population centers.
My brain cells.
Just going back to Ukraine for 1 second. We have an ocean separating us. The European nations together have spent 100 billion or maybe more than that, less than us. Why doesn't he call them and say, you got to put up your money like I did with NATO? I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. The Secretary General of
Why
NATO
are we
said
going
Trump did
back
the
to
most incredible
motherfucking
job
NATO?
I've ever seen.
Letterhack
They wouldn't
asks,
have
would I
they were
take
going out of
Hillary,
business.
rod
We were
him,
spending
goddamn,
almost
over
100%
Biden?
of the money
I've said this
was paid
before,
by us.
like years ago,
He didn't
is
do
that I
that.
would rather have
He's
Hillary
getting
than Joe
You got
right
to ask
now.
these people to put up the money.
If you were to
We're
ask
over
me Hillary or
$100
Joe, I would
billion
choose
more
Hillary
spent, and it has a
10
bigger
times out of
impact on
10.
them because of location, because we have an ocean in between. You got to ask them. As far as Israel and
Just being
Hamas,
honest.
Israel's the one that wants to go. He said the only one who wants to keep going is Hamas. Actually, Israel is the one, and you should let him go and let him finish the job. He doesn't want to do it. He's become like a Palestinian, but they don't like him because he's a very bad Palestinian. He's a weak one.
President Biden, you have a minute.
I've never heard so much foolishness. This is a guy who wants to get out of NATO. Are you going to stay in NATO? He's going to pull out of NATO.
I'm going to say that
The
counts as
idea
your
that we
Hamas.
have, our strength lies in our alliances as well. It may be a big ocean, but we're ever able to avoid a war in Europe, a major war in Europe? What happens if, in fact, you have Putin continue to go into NATO? We have an Article 5 agreement.
God.
Attack on one is attack on all. You want to start the nuclear war he keeps talking about, go ahead. Let Putin go in and control Ukraine and then move on to Poland and other places. See what happens then. He has no idea what the hell he's talking about. And by the way, I got 50 other nations around the world to support Ukraine, including Japan and South Korea, because they understand that this kind of dislocation has a serious threat to the whole world peace.
Mayor Pete,
No
I don't
major
know.
war in Europe has ever been able to be contained just to Europe.
I don't know about that.
President Trump, just to follow up, would you support the creation of an independent Palestinian state in order to achieve peace in the region?
I'd have to see, but before we do that, the problem we have is that we spend all the money. So they kill us on trade. I made great trade deals with the European nations.
What are
Because
we
if you add them
talking
up,
about?
they're about
What
the
is-
same size economically.
What is the
Their
debate?
economy is
What are
about
they
the same size
debating?
as the
They're
United
both just
States.
spewing
And they
horse
were
shit.
no cars, no.
What's
they don't
the
want anything
debating?
that we have, but we're supposed to take their cars, their food, their everything, their agriculture.
What the fuck does this
Change
have to
that.
do with Israel?
But the big thing I changed is they don't want to pay. And the only reason that he can play games with NATO is because I got them to put up hundreds of billions of dollars. I said, and he's right about this, I said, no, I'm not going to support NATO if you don't pay. They asked me that question, would you guard us against Russia at a very
Russia.
secret meeting of the 28 states at that time, nations at that time. And I said, no, if you don't pay, I won't do that. And you know what happened? Billions and billions of dollars came flowing in the next day and the next months. But now we're in the same position. We're paying everybody's bills.
Let's turn to the issue of democracy. Former President
it?
Trump, I want to ask
That's
you about
all we're gonna get
January
on
6th,
Israel?
2021.
Are you
After
fucking
rallied
kidding
your
me?
supporters that day, some of them stormed the Capitol
the only
to
thing we're gonna
stop
get
the
on Israel is them talking
constitutionally
about
mandated
Europe.
counting of electoral votes.
That's all we get.
As president, you swore an oath to, quote, preserve, protect, and defend, unquote, the Constitution. What do you say to voters who believe that you violated that oath through your actions
This one
and
might be
inaction
good,
on
though. We'll
January
see how
6th
this
and
goes.
worry that you'll do it again?
Well, I don't think too many believe that. And let me tell you about January 6th. On January 6th, we had a great border. Nobody
What?
coming through, very few. On January 6th, we were energy independent. On January 6th, we had the lowest taxes ever.
Oh,
we had the
my
lowest
God, this is
regulations
not-
ever.
he's not
On
gonna
January
spin
6th,
this.
we were
This is
respected all
no.
over the world.
Oh.
All over the world, we were respected. And then he comes in, and we're now laughed at. We're like a bunch of stupid people. What happened to the United
How long
States'
is this fucking thing
reputation
gonna
under
last?
this man's leadership is horrible, including weaponization, which I'm sure at some point you'll be talking about, where he goes after his political opponent because he can't beat him fair and square.
You have 80 seconds left. My question was, what do you say to those voters who believe that you violated your constitutional oath through your actions and inaction on January 6th,
So we have a little
2021,
bit of pushback
and worry
here
that
for
you'll
once?
do it again?
Well, I didn't say that to anybody. I said peacefully and patriotically. And Nancy Pelosi, if you just watched the news from 2 days ago, on tape to her daughter, who's a documentary filmmaker, they say. But she's
They
saying,
say.
oh,
Is it
no,
really?
it's my responsibility. I was
It's the rumor?
responsible for this. Because I offered her 10,000 soldiers or National Guard, and she turned them down. And the mayor of, in writing, by the way, the mayor, in writing, turned it down, the mayor of D.C. They turned it down. I offered 10,000 because I could see, I had virtually nothing to do. They asked me to go make a speech. I could see what was happening. Everybody was saying they're going to be there on January 6th. They're going to be there. And I said, you know what? There's a lot of people coming. You could feel it. You could feel it too, and you could feel it. And I said, they ought to have some National Guard or whatever. And I offered it to her. And she now admits that she turned it down. And it was the same day she was, I don't know, she can't be very happy with her daughter because it made her into a liar. She said, I take full responsibility for January 6th.
President Biden?
What the fuck is he talking about?
He
How is it
encouraged
Nancy
those folks to go
Pelosi's
up the
fault?
Capitol Hill, number one.
What the
I
fuck?
sat in the dining room off the Oval Office. He sat there for 3 hours. 3 hours watching, begging, being begged by his vice president and a number of his colleagues on the Republican side as well to do something, to call for a stop, to end it. Instead, they talked about these people being patriots and great patrons of
I
America.
agree with Biden
In
on
fact,
this a little bit.
He says he'll now forgive them for what they've done. They've been convicted. He says he wants to commute their sentences and say that no. But he went to every single court in the nation. I don't know how many cases, scores of cases, including the Supreme Court, and they said, no, this guy is
no.
responsible for doing what was done. He did do a damn thing, and these people should be in jail, and they should be the ones who are being held accountable. And he wants to let them all out, and now he says if he loses again, such a whiner that he is, that it could be a bloodbath.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump?
A whiner. That's
What
pretty
they've done
funny.
to some people that are so innocent, you ought to be ashamed of yourself. What you have done, how you've destroyed the lives of so many people. When they ripped down Portland, when they ripped down many other cities, you go to Minnesota, Minneapolis, what they've done there with
They
the
ripped it
fires
down?
all over the city. If I didn't bring in the National Guard, that city would have been destroyed. When you look at all of they took over big chunks of Seattle. I was all set to bring in the National Guard. They heard
took
that,
it
they saw
over.
them coming, and they left immediately. What he said about this whole subject is so off. Peacefully patriotic. One other thing.
The fuck is he talking
The
about?
Unselect Committee, which is basically two horrible Republicans that are all gone
What
now
the
out of
fuck
office,
is he talking? Why
and
is he
Democrats,
talking
all
about
Democrats.
2020?
They
Hello,
destroyed
Becky?
and deleted all of the information they found because they found out we were right. We were right. And they deleted and destroyed all of the information. They should go to jail for that. If a Republican did that, they'd go to jail.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, I want to give you a
What
minute.
the fuck?
The only person on this stage is a convicted felon is the man I'm looking at right now.
All right.
And the fact of the matter is,
All right.
what he's telling you is simply not true. The fact is that there was no effort on his part to stop what was going on up in Capitol Hill. And all those people, every one of those who were convicted, deserves to be convicted. The idea that they didn't kill somebody, just went in and broke down doors, broke the windows, occupied offices, turned over desks, turned
I
over
agree with
statues.
Biden. I'm
The
glad Biden's
idea
pushing back
that
here.
those people are patriots? Come on. When I asked him the first two debates we had, the debates we had first time around, I said, will you denounce the Proud Boys? He said, no, I'll tell them to stand by. The idea he's refusing, will you denounce these guys? Will you denounce the people we're talking about now? Will you denounce the people who attacked that
Biden,
Capitol?
you're
What are you
failing.
going to do?
I'm going to give you a minute, President Trump, for a follow-up question I have. After a jury
What the fuck
convicted
was that,
you
man?
of 34 felonies last month, you said if reelected, you would, quote, have every right to go after, unquote, your political opponents. You just talked about members of the Select Committee on January 6th going to jail. Your main political opponent is standing on stage with you tonight. Can you clarify exactly what it means about you feeling you have every right to go after your political opponents?
Well, I said my retribution is going to be success. We're going to make this country successful again, because right now it's a failing nation. My retribution is going to be success. But when he talks about a convicted felon, his son is a convicted felon at a very high level. His son is convicted, going to be
Why?
convicted probably numerous other times.
Why does that
Should have
matter?
been convicted before, but his Justice Department let the statute of limitations lapse on the most important things. But he could be a convicted felon as soon as he gets out of office. Joe could be a
What?
convicted felon with all of the
What?
things that he's done. He's done
What?
horrible things. All of the death caused at the border, telling the Ukrainian
back to the
people
fucking
that
border.
we're going to want $1 billion or you change the prosecutor. Otherwise, you're not getting $1 billion. If I ever said that, that's quid pro quo. That
What the
we're not going to do
fuck
anything. We're not
is
going to
he
give you $1 billion
talking about?
unless you change your prosecutor
What
having
is
to
he
do with the
talking
son.
about?
This man is a criminal. This man, you're lucky. You're lucky. I did nothing wrong.
All right.
We'd
Trump
have a
has lost
system that
control
was
of the
rigged
English
and
language.
disgusting.
I think
did
it's
nothing
official.
wrong.
Thank you,
Trump
President
has no
Trump.
idea
President
how to
Biden, you
use
have
words
said,
anymore?
I'm coming right to you, sir. Well, you want to respond? Go ahead. I'll give you a minute to respond.
The idea
Oh, here we
that
go.
I did anything wrong relative to what you're talking about is outrageous. It's simply a lie, number one. Number two, the idea that you have a right to seek retribution against any American just because you're president is wrong. It's simply wrong. No president's ever spoken like that before. No president in our history has spoken
No
like that before.
president's ever
Number
spoken
three,
like that.
the crimes that you are still charged with, and think of all the civil penalties you have. How many billions of dollars do you owe in civil penalties for molesting a woman in public, for doing a whole range of things, of having sex with a porn star on the night while your wife was pregnant? I mean, what are you talking about?
Trump's face,
You
man.
have the morals on
He's
that.
like, oh, good times.
Good night,
Good
sir.
times.
I didn't have sex with a porn star, number one.
Well, that's
number
not
two,
true.
that was a case that was started and moved. They moved a high-ranking official, a DOJ, into the Manhattan DA's office to start that case. That case is going to be appealed
He just
and
said
won.
he
we
did
had
not
a
have
very
sex with a porn star.
terrible judge,
It's just
a
not true.
horrible judge, Democrat. The
Jesus
prosecutor were all
We're
high-ranking
only 40
Democrats,
minutes in.
appointed people, and both the civil and the criminal. He basically went after his political opponent because he thought it was going to damage me. But when the public found out about these cases, because they understand it better than he does, he has no idea what these cases are. But when they found out about these cases, you know what they did? My poll numbers went up, way up. You know that because you're reporting it.
In the Republican
and we took in more
primary.
money in the last 2 weeks than we've
poll
ever
numbers
taken
went up in the
the
Republican
history of
primary,
any
not
campaign.
in the general
I don't think any
election.
campaign has ever taken. Hundreds of millions of dollars came pouring in because the public knows it's a scam and it's a guy that's after his political opponent because he can't win fair and square.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden, you have said, quote, Donald Trump and his MAGA Republicans are determined to destroy American democracy. Do you believe that the tens of millions of Americans who are likely to vote for President Trump will be voting against American democracy?
The more they know about what he's done, yes.
Yeah, I mean, the
more they
answer
know
is
about what he's
yes.
done.
I'm honestly on.
And there's a
I'm
lot
on
more coming.
Biden's
He's got a
team.
lot
This
of
whole
cases now
January
that are
6th
coming
thing,
out.
I'm on Biden's team.
He's got
been
a
pretty
whole
good
range
at it.
of issues he has to face. I don't know what the juries will do, but I do know he has a real problem. And so the fact that, could you ever think you heard any president say that I'm going to seek retribution? Do you ever hear any presidents say that I thought Hitler had some good ideas? What got me involved to run in the first place after my son had died, I decided.
Has any president
in
ever had
Iraq
dinner
because
with
of Iraq,
neo-Nazis?
I said I wasn't going to run again until I saw what happened in
that's-
Charlottesville, Virginia. People coming out of the woods carrying swastikas on torches, and singing the same anti-Semitic bile they sang when back in Germany. And the young
back
woman
in
got
Germany?
killed. I spoke to the mother, and they asked him. They said, What do
mother?
you think of those people? The ones who got killed, the one who tried to stop it, and the ones he said, I think they're fine people on both sides. What American president would ever say, Nazis coming out of fields, carrying torches, singing the same anti-Semitic bile, carrying swastikas, were fine people? And this is a guy who says Hitler's done some good things. I'd like to know what they are. Good things Hitler's done. That's what he said.
I'm not
This
gonna
guy has
lie.
no
if
sense
if
of American
Biden
democracy.
spruced up his delivery, this would
President
be
Trump.
good. But
Jake, both of you know that story has been totally wiped out.
Totally
Because when you see the sentence,
wiped
it said 100% exoneration on that. So he just keeps it going. He says he ran
100%
because of Charlottesville. He didn't run
exoneration.
because of Charlottesville. He ran because it was his last
Charlottesville?
chance. He's not equipped to be president. You know it, and I know it. It's ridiculous. We have a debate. We're trying to justify his presidency. His presidency, he's without question the worst president, the worst
finish the
presidency
sentence.
in the history of our country.
Stop restarting
We shouldn't
your
be having a
sentence.
debate about it. There's nothing to
Come on,
debate.
finish your
He
sentence.
made up the Charlottesville story, and
He
you'll
made it
see
up.
it's debunked all over the place.
just made it
Every
up.
anchor has every reasonable anchor
He
has
just made it up.
debunked
Sure, why not?
And just the other day, it came out where it was fully debunked. It's a nonsense story. He
There's
knows
a video
that,
of
and he
him
didn't run
saying it,
because of
but it's been
Charlottesville.
fully
He used that as
debunked.
an excuse to run.
President Biden?
And debunked. It happened. All you have to do is listen to what was said at the time.
we live in the
And
era
idea
where there's
that
no truth.
Somehow
there's
that's
no
the only
reality.
reason I ran.
It's
I
debunked.
ran because I was worried a guy like this guy could get elected. If he thought they were good people coming out of that forest, carrying those.
Joe
those-
Biden only
carrying
afraid
those
for
torches,
president because the
and he
rich
didn't
people
deserve
were
to be
afraid of
president.
Bernie Sanders.
Didn't deserve to be president
That's
at
the
all.
only reason he
And the
ran for president.
idea that he's
They
talking
wheeled him
about
out here?
all this being fabricated. We saw with our own eyes. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw the people breaking through the windows. We saw people occupying his own vice president. Look, there's a reason why 40 of his 44 top cabinet officers refused to endorse him this time. His vice president hasn't endorsed him this time. So why? Why? They know him well. They serve with him. Why are they not endorsing him?
Thank you, President Biden.
Because
We're
he
gonna be
fucking
right back with
sucks.
more
We
from the
know that.
CNN presidential debate.
Jeez. This is hard to watch. I'm not gonna lie, this is hard to watch. We're getting a little break here, fortunately, but boy, oh boy.
The House will be in order.
This year, C-SPAN celebrates
Wow.
45 years of covering
I'm
Congress
gonna
like no
go
other.
take a bathroom break.
Since 1979, we've been your primary source for
Wow.
Capitol Hill, providing balanced, unfiltered coverage of government, taking you to where the policies debated and decided, all with the support
Enjoy
of
the
America's cable
fucking
companies.
C-SPAN advertisements.
C-SPAN,
I'm
45
just
years and
streaming
counting.
C-SPAN.
Powered by
so
cable.
Whatever they're gonna play, enjoy it.
We'll welcome them into a great
Oh
national
shit, it's
crusade
Reagan.
to make
Hi
America
Reagan.
great
Okay, I'm gonna
again.
use the bathroom.
That our dream has been earned for progress and for peace. Taxes will go up, and anyone who says they won't is not telling the truth.
With our beloved nation at peace, we're in the midst of a springtime of hope for America.
Because we are the party that believes in the American dream.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
I still believe in a place called hope.
But here's the question for the American people. Who do you trust in this election?
The real choice is whether we will build a bridge to the future or a bridge to the past.
And I have unlimited confidence in the wisdom of our people and the future of our country.
I stand here tonight as my own man, and I want you to know me for who I truly am.
They had their chance. They have not led. We will.
I'm John Kerry, and I'm reporting for duty.
These 4 years have brought moments I could not foresee and will not forget.
It's time for us to change America.
I wasn't my own man anymore. I was my country's.
I don't believe that rolling back regulations on Wall Street will help the small businesswoman expand or the laid-off construction worker keep his home. We have been there. We've tried that, and we're not going back. We are moving forward, America.
Under my administration, our friends will see more loyalty, and Mr. Putin will see a little less flexibility and more backbone.
He wants to make America great again. Well, he could start by actually making things in America again.
We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again.
Here and now, I give you my word.
Is this
you
thing on?
entrust me with the presidency, I will draw on the best of us, not the worst.
This towering American spirit has prevailed over every challenge and lifted us to the summit of human endeavor.
Hey, thanks for the money.
Watch C-SPAN's Campaign 2024 live coverage of the Republican National Convention starting July 15th and the Democratic National Convention beginning August 19th. C-SPAN, your unfiltered view of the conventions, powered by cable.
Hello.
And in just a moment, our simulcast of the CNN presidential debate between President Biden and former President Trump will resume. This is happening live from CNN studios in Atlanta.
I got alcohol, so I'm ready for the second half. Look, now we got this weird fucking music
back to the
that
CNN presidential debate.
They play this at
live
every
from
debate for
Georgia.
the last 10 fucking
Let's talk
years.
about persistent challenges you both faced in your first terms, and you'd certainly face again in a second term. President Biden, while black unemployment dropped to a record low under your presidency, black families still earn far less than white families. Black mothers are still 3 times more likely to die from pregnancy-related causes, and black Americans are imprisoned at 5 times the rate of white Americans. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed that you haven't made more progress?
They acknowledge they made a lot of progress, number one. The fact of the matter is there's more small black businesses that have been started than any time in history. Number two, the wages of black unemployment is the lowest level it's been in a long, long time. Number three, we're providing housing for black Americans and dealing with the segregation that exists among these corporate corporations that collude to keep people out of their houses.
Horrible.
In addition to that, we find that the impact on the choice that black families have to make relative to child care is incredibly difficult. When we did the first major piece of legislation in the past, I was able to reduce black child care costs. We got to make sure we provide for child care costs. We got to make sure, because when you provide those child care protections, you increase economic growth because more people can be in the job market. So there's more to be done, considerably more to be done. But we've done a great deal so far, and I'm not letting up, and they know it.
You have 49 seconds left. What do you say to black voters who are disappointed with the progress so far?
I say I don't blame them for being disappointed. Inflation is still hurting them badly.
Okay.
For example, I provided for the idea that any black family, first-time home buyer, should get a $10,000 tax credit to be able to buy their first home so they can get started. I made sure that we're in a situation where all those black families and those black individuals who provided had to take out student loans.
Shout outs to all those black individuals.
That if they were engaged in nursing, doctor, and anything having to do with volunteerism, if they paid their bills for 10 years on their student debt, all the rest was forgiven after 10 years. Millions have benefited from that. And we're going to do a whole lot more for black families.
Thank you, President Trump.
Shout out
And he
to black
caused the
individuals.
inflation. He's blaming inflation, and he's right, it's been very bad. He caused the inflation, and it's killing black families and Hispanic families and just about everybody. It's killing people. They can't buy groceries anymore. They can't. You look at the cost of food where it's doubled and tripled and quadrupled. They can't live. They're not living anymore. He caused this inflation.
How did he cause it, though? Like,
that's
the thing.
With essentially no inflation. It was perfect.
Why
it was
doesn't
so good. All he had to do was leave it alone. He destroyed it
I mean,
with his Green New Scam and all this money that's being thrown out the window.
That never happened.
He caused inflation. As sure
there
as
was
you're
never a
sitting there,
Green New Scam.
The fact is that his big kill on the black people is the millions of people that he's allowed to come in through the border. They're taking black
not the
jobs
fucking
now.
border.
And it could be 18.
Shut the
It could
fuck
be 19
up.
and even 20 million people. They're taking
20
black
million
jobs,
people are
and they're
invading
taking
us.
Hispanic jobs.
Oh,
and you haven't
God.
seen it yet, but you're going to see something that's going to be the worst in our history.
Thank you. President
The
Biden.
worst.
There was no inflation when I became president. You know why? The economy was flat on its back. 15% unemployment. He decimated the economy, absolutely decimated the economy. That's why there was no inflation at the time. There were no jobs. We provided thousands of millions of jobs for individuals who are in all communities, including minority communities. We made sure that they have health insurance. We have covered, the ACA has increased. I made sure that they're $8,000 per person in a family to get written off for health care. But this guy wants to eliminate that. They tried 50 times. He wants to get rid of the ACA again, and they're going to try again if they win. You find ourselves in a position where the idea that we're not doing any, we put more police on the street than any administration has. He wants to cut the cops. We're providing for equity.
He's going pro-cop.
Making sure people have a shot
Biden's going to the
make it.
right on
There's
police.
a lot going on. But in inflation, he caused it by his tremendous malfeasance in the way he handled the pandemic.
Thank you. Another persistent challenge is the climate crisis. 2023 was the hottest year
Just
in
a reminder,
recorded
the
history,
pandemic
and
is still
communities
going on.
across
Joe Biden is
the
worse
country
on
are
that issue.
confronting the devastating effects of extreme heat, intensifying wildfires, stronger hurricanes, and rising sea levels. Former President Trump, you've vowed to end your opponent's climate initiatives, but will you take any action as president to slow the climate crisis?
Well, let me just go back to what he said about the police, how close the police are to him. Almost every police group in the nation from every state is supporting Donald J. Trump.
That's
Almost
what's
every
pathetic
police group.
about
And
Joe
what he's
Biden
done
trying to
the
be
black
pro-cop.
population
That's why it's funny.
is horrible, including the fact that for 10 years he called them super predators. We can't, in the 1990s, we can't forget that. Super predators was his name, and he called it to them for 10, and they've taken great offense at it, and now they see it happening. But when they see what I did for criminal justice reform and for the historically
I love how, like,
black
fucking cartoonish that
colleges and
is.
universities,
Super
where I
predators.
funded them and got them all funded, and the opportunity zones with Tim, as you know, Tim Scott was incredible. He did a great job.
Oh, shit.
Great
Tim
senator
Scott
from
name drop.
South Carolina. He came to
He's
me
the
with
vice
the idea,
president.
and it was a
Confirmed.
great idea.
He
It's
got
one
the
of the
name
most
drop.
successful economic
Yep.
development acts ever in the country, opportunity zones. And the biggest beneficiary are blacks. And that's why we have the best numbers with them in maybe ever. They're saying ever. I read this morning where ever, the best numbers. He's lost much of the black population because he's done a horrible job for black people. He's also done a horrible job for Hispanics. But wait till you see these millions of people pouring into our country, and they're going to take the jobs, and it's already started, and you haven't seen anything yet. It's a disaster.
Where
38 seconds left, President Trump. Will you
millions of
take any
people, what?
action as president to slow the climate crisis?
So I want absolutely immaculate clean water, and I want absolutely clean air, and we had it. We had H2O. We had the best numbers ever.
We had H2O.
And we were using all forms of energy, all forms, everything. And yet, during my 4 years, I had the best environmental numbers ever. And my top environmental people gave me that statistic just before I walked on the stage, actually.
Oh, just beforehand.
I don't know where the hell he's been. The idea that anything he said is true. I've passed the most extensive climate change legislation in history. We find ourselves, and by the way, black colleges.
The climate change legislation in history,
$50 billion for HBCUs,
also known as like the
historic
first,
black universities and colleges.
and it's not very good
because they don't have the kind of contributors that they have to build these laboratories and the like. Any black student is capable in college of doing what any white student can do. They just don't have the money. But now they'll be able to get those jobs in high tech. We're in a situation where the idea that he is claiming to have done something that had the cleanest water, he hadn't done a damn thing for the environment. He pulled out of the Paris Peace Accord, Climate Accord. I immediately
over 90% of zip codes in the United States have some form of a poison in the tap
there's
water.
no way back. The only existential threat to humanity is climate change, and he didn't do a damn thing about it. He wants to undo all that I've done.
The Paris Accord was going to cost us $1 trillion, and China nothing, and Russia nothing,
Well, the Paris
and India
Climate
nothing.
Accord was shit because it wasn't good enough.
United States. And
of course,
I ended
Trump
it
is kind
because
of
I
insane.
didn't want to waste that money because they treat us horribly. We were the only ones. It was costing us money. Nobody else was paying into it, and it was a disaster. But everything that he said just now, I'll give you an example. I heard him say before insulin. I'm the one that got the insulin down for the seniors.
It was me.
I took care of the seniors. What he's doing is destroying all of our medical programs because the migrants coming in, they want everybody. And look, I have the biggest heart on the stage. I guarantee you that. And I want to take care of people. But we're destroying our country. They're taking over our schools, our hospitals, and they're going to be taking over Social Security. He is destroying Social Security, Medicare, and Medicaid.
What?
The idea is that
What?
we, in fact,
Biden's
we
destroying
were
Medicaid?
the only ones of consequence who were not members of the Paris Accord. How can we do anything? We're not able to, the United States can't get its pollution under control. One of the largest polluters in the world, number one. We're making significant progress. By 2035, we will have cut pollution in half. We have made significant progress, and we're continuing to make progress. We set up a climate corps for thousands of young people who will learn how to deal with climate, just like the Peace Corps. And we're moving in directions that are going to significantly change the elements of cause of pollution. But the idea that he claims that he has the biggest heart up here and he's really concerned about pollution and about climate, I've not seen any indication of that. And by the way, with regard to prescription drugs, one company agreed that they would reduce the price to $35, which I was calling for, one, voluntarily. I made sure every company in the world, every pharmaceutical company, cannot
That's the
have
thing
to
is
pay.
like they're
And by
both
the way,
basically yapping about
So
like
every
shit
day,
that both of them
millions
are bad
Americans
about.
struggle just to make ends meet. For many older Americans,
Like,
Social
Joe
Security
Biden's garbage
provides a
on
critical
climate change,
lifeline.
but, like,
President Biden, if nothing is done to
just that
Social
Trump
Security,
is so
seniors
much
will
worse.
see their benefits cut in just over 10 years. Will you name tonight one specific step that you're willing to take to keep Social Security solvent?
yes, make the very wealthy begin to pay their fair share. Right now,
That's a good answer for
everybody
Biden.
making under $170,000 pays 6% of their income, of their paycheck, every single time they get a paycheck from the time of the first one they get when they're 18 years old. The idea that they're going to, I'm proposing that everybody, they pay, the millionaires pay 1%. 1%.
Come on.
So no one after, I would not raise the cost of Social Security for anybody under $400,000. After that, I began to make the wealthy begin to pay their fair share by increasing from 1% beyond to be able to guarantee the program for life.
It's a good answer.
So you still have
but
82
my
seconds
God.
left. Are there any other
My
measures that
God.
you think that would be able to help keep Social Security solvent, or is that one enough?
Well, no, that one enough will keep it solvent, but the biggest thing will do if we defeat this man, because he wants to get rid of Social Security.
We must defeat
He
this
thinks
man.
there's plenty to cut in Social Security. He's wanting to cut Social Security and Medicare, both times. And that's what. And if you look at the program put forward by the House Republican caucus that he, I believe, supports, is in fact want to cut it as well. The idea that we don't need to protect our seniors is ridiculous. And by the way, the American public has greater health care coverage today than ever before. And on the ACA, as I said, you're in a circumstance where 400,000 people, 40 million people would not have insurance because they have a pre-existing condition. Only thing that allows them to have that insurance is the fact that they, in fact, are part of the ACA. And by the way, the other thing is, we're in a situation where I talk about education for black communities. I've raised the amount of money for Pell Grants by another $8,000. So anybody making under $70,000 a year is going to be able to get $15,000 toward the tuition.
He's just doing the fucking...
He just doesn't know what he's talking about.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump.
So I've
like
dealt with
Joe Biden
politicians
actually has decent
all my life.
points
I've been
that
on
he's
this
trying,
side
but
of
he's
equation
failing
for the last
to
8
get them
years.
across because it just deviates
I've never
into
seen
like
anybody lie
jibber
like
jabber.
this guy. He lies. I've never seen it. He could look you in the face. About so many other things too. And we mentioned the laptop. We mentioned Russia,
The
Russia, Ukraine,
laptop from hell.
Everything he does is a lie. It's misinformation and disinformation. The losers and suckers story that he made up is a total lie on the military. It's a disgrace. But Social Security, he's destroying it because millions of people are pouring into our country, and they're putting them onto Social Security.
Where are these
They're putting
millions
them
of
onto
people?
Medicare,
What are
Medicaid.
these
They're
fucking
putting them in
guys
our
talking
hospitals.
about?
They're taking the
Millions
place
of
of
people.
our citizens. What they're doing to the VA, to our veterans, is unbelievable. Our veterans are living in the street, and these people are living in luxury hotels. He doesn't know what he's doing, and it's really coming back. I've never seen such anger in our country before.
President Biden?
The idea that veterans are not being taken care of, I told you before. And by the way, when I said suckers and losers, he acknowledged after that he fired that general. That general got fired because he's the one that acknowledged that that's what he said. He was the one standing with Trump when he said it. Number one. Number two.
That's a good
the
point
idea
from
that
Biden.
We're going to be in a situation where
Donald Trump was like, he didn't say
these
it, but also I
millions and
fired
millions,
him.
the way he talks about it. Illegal
Really?
aliens are coming into the country and taking away our jobs. There's a reason why we have the fastest growing economy in the world. The reason why we have the most successful economy in the world. We're doing better than any other nation in the world. And by the way, those 15 Nobel laureates he talked about being phony, those 15 Nobel laureates, economists, they all said that if Trump is reelected, we're likely to have a recession and inflation is going to increasingly go up. And by the way, worst president in history, 159 presidential scholars voted him the worst president in the history of the United States of America.
President Biden,
Okay,
thank you so much.
that's
Let's turn to the cost of
That's just
child
funny?
care, which many American families struggle to afford. President Trump, both you and President Biden have tried to address this issue, but the average cost of child care in this country has risen to more than $11,000 a year per child. For many families, the cost of child care for 2 children is more than their rent. In your second term, what would you do to make child care more affordable?
This one ought to be interesting.
Just to go back, the general got
gotta go
fired
back.
because he was no good. And if he said that, that's why he made it up. But we have 19 people that said I didn't say it, and they're
was no
very
good?
highly respected, much more so than him.
Highly respected.
The other thing is,
I love that shit.
he doesn't fire
19 people.
He never fired people. I've never seen him fire anybody. I did fire a lot. I fired Comey because he was no good. I fired a lot of the top people at the FBI, drained the swamp. They were no good. Not easy to fire people. You'd pay a price for it, but they were no good. I inherited these people. I didn't put Comey there. He was no good. I fired him. This guy hasn't fired anybody. He never fires. He should have fired every military man that was involved with that the Afghanistan horror show, the most embarrassing moment in the history of our country.
What?
He didn't
What is
fire.
with
Did you
that?
fire anybody? Did you fire
Who
anybody
fucking gives a
that's on
shit
the
about
border that's allowed
Afghanistan?
us
We
to have
got
the
out of
worst border in the
Afghanistan.
history of
That's
the world?
pretty
Did anybody
decent,
get
you know?
fired for allowing 18
How is that the
million
most
people,
embarrassing?
Many
What
from
does he keep
prisons,
saying that
many
for?
from
Who cares?
From mental institutions. Did you fire anybody that allowed our country
Getting
to
into
be
Afghanistan
destroyed?
is significantly
Joe, our
more
country
embarrassing.
is being destroyed as you and I sit up here and waste a lot of time on this debate. This shouldn't be a debate. He is the worst president. He just said about me because I said it. But look, he's the worst president in the history of our country. He's destroyed our country. Now all of a sudden he's trying to get a little tough on the border. He
You're the
came
worst.
out with a nothing.
You're the
a
worst.
nothing deal, and it reduced it a little bit.
No,
a little bit.
you're
like
the worst.
This much. It's insignificant.
Anthony, you're the
he
worst.
wants open borders. He wants our country to
Fucking
either be
open
destroyed
borders.
or he wants to pick up those people as voters. And I don't think we just can't let it happen. If he wins this election, our country doesn't have a chance, not even a chance, of coming out of this rut. We probably won't have a country left anymore. That's how bad it is. He is the worst in history by far.
Thank you, President Trump. President Biden?
We're the most admired country in the world. We're the United States of America. There's nothing beyond our capacity. We have the finest military in the history of the world, the finest in the history of the world. No one thinks we're weak. No one wants to screw around with us. Nobody.
I think we're weak.
Number one. Number two, the idea that we're talking about worst presidents. I wasn't joking. Look it up. Go online. 159 or 58, don't hold me the exact number, presidential historians, they've had meetings and they voted who's the worst president in American history.
Okay, this is
best to
funny
worst.
as
They said
one
he was
remark,
the worst in all
but honestly,
of
if you're going to
American
keep
history.
bringing up
That's
the
a fact.
historians,
that's
it's,
not
you know,
that's not conjecture.
it's funny.
You can argue they're
okay,
wrong, but that's what they voted. The idea that he is
funny
doing anything to deal with child care, he did for virtually nothing to child care. We should significantly increase the child care tax credit. We should significantly increase the availability of women and men or single parents to be able to go back to work. And we should encourage businesses to have
Thank you, President Biden.
Facilities.
President Trump, the question was about what would you do to make child care more affordable, if you want to take your minute.
Just so you understand, we have polling, we have other things that they rate him the worst because what he's done is so bad. And they rate
You're the worst.
I'll show you.
No,
and they rate me one
you're
of the best,
worst.
Okay?
I have
and
wonderful
if I'm
people,
given another
and they tell
4
me
years,
that
I
you're
will
the
be
worst.
best. I
Actually,
think I'll be the best.
I have
Nobody's ever
very tremendous people,
created an economy
and they
like
said
us. Nobody
you're
ever
the
cut
worst.
taxes
No,
like us.
you're the
He's
worst.
the only one I know. He wants to raise your taxes by
What the
4
fuck?
times.
They keep
He
doing
wants to raise everybody's taxes by 4 times. He wants the Trump tax cuts to expire, so everybody, including the 2 of you, are going to pay 4 to 5 times. Nobody ever heard of this before. All my life, I grow up and I see politicians talking about cutting taxes. When we cut taxes, as I said, we did more business. Apple and all these companies, they were bringing money back into our country. The worst president in history by far, and everybody knows it.
President Biden?
Look, the fact of the matter is that he's dead wrong about. He's increased the tariff. He will increase the taxes
Joe
on
Biden,
middle-class people.
he has lost
I said
this
I'd never raise
debate
the tax
so
on anybody
horribly.
making less than $400,000.
Oh my God!
I didn't.
really.
But these
hate to tell
tariffs,
you,
10% tariffs, everything coming into the country. You know what the economists say? That's going to cost the average American $2,500 a year more because they're going to have to pay the difference in food and all the things that were imported. Number 2, he's in a situation where he talks about how he has not raised. He's somehow helped the middle class. Middle class have been devastated by you. Now you want a new tax cut of $5 trillion over the next 10 years, which is going to fundamentally bankrupt the country. You had the largest deficit of any president in American history, number 1. Number 2, you have not, in fact, made any contact, any progress with China.
You can't like
lowest
look at the
trade deficit
guy
in China
and do
since
this
2010.
and stutter
Thank you, President
so
Biden.
horribly.
Thank you, President Biden. Let's discuss an epidemic impacting millions of Americans that both of you have made a top priority in your first term, the opioid crisis. And for both of you, the number of overdose deaths in this country has gone up. Under your term, it went up. Under your term, it has gone up. Former President Trump, despite the efforts that both of you have made, more than 100,000 Americans are dying from overdoses every year, primarily from fentanyl and other opioids. What will you do to help Americans right now in the throes of addiction who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
To finish up, we now have the largest deficit in the history of our country.
Who fucking cares about
we have the largest
deficit
with China.
I don't know a single motherfucker who cares about
he's
the fucking deficit. No one gives a shit about the goddamn deficit.
We have, so I think he's afraid to deal with it or something. But do you notice he never took out my tariffs because we bring in so much money with the tariffs that I imposed on China. He never took them away. He can't because it's too much money. It's tremendous. And we saved our steel industries, and there was more to come. But he hasn't done that. But he hasn't cut the tariffs because he can't, because it's too much money. But he's got the largest deficit in the history of our country, and he's got the worst situation with China.
Because it just
China's
always
going to
goes
own
up
us if you
under
keep
everybody.
allowing them to do what they're doing to us as a country. They are killing us as a country, Joe, and you can't let that happen. You're destroying our country.
So, President Trump, you have 67 seconds left. The question was, what are you going to do to help Americans in the throes of addiction right now who are struggling to get the treatment they need?
Right, the question.
Jake, we were doing very well at addiction until the COVID came along. We had the 2.5, almost 3 years of like nobody's ever had before, any country, in every way. And then we had to get tough. And it was the drugs pouring across the border it started to increase. We got
the only
great
way to
equipment.
combat
we bought
fentanyl
the certain dog that's the most
end the
incredible
war on drugs.
thing that you've ever seen. The way
But
they
they're
can spot
both
it. We did a lot,
drug
and
cops.
we were getting very low numbers, very, very low numbers.
So
then
they're
he
probably
came
just
along,
going to try to
the numbers,
out-right-wing
have you
each
seen
other?
the numbers now? It's not only the 18 million people that I believe is even low because the gotaways, they don't even talk about gotaways, but the numbers of the amount of drugs and human trafficking in women coming across our border. The worst thing I've ever seen.
Why is he screaming all of a sudden?
At numbers that nobody's ever seen under him because the border's so bad. But the number
have you forgotten?
of drugs coming across
so
our border
bad.
now is the largest we've ever had by far.
President Trump, thank you. President Biden?
Fentanyl and the byproducts of fentanyl went down for a while. And I wanted to make sure we use the machinery that can detect fentanyl, these big machines that roll over everything that comes across the border. And it costs a lot of money. That was part of this deal we put together, this bipartisan deal. More fentanyl machines, more be able to detect drugs, more numbers of agents, more numbers of all the people at the border. And when we had that deal done, he called his Republican colleagues, said, don't do it. It's going to hurt me politically. No, he never argued it's not a good bill. It's a really good bill. We need those machines. We need those machines. And we're coming down very hard in every country
he talking about this
in Asia
fucking
in terms of precursors for
bill
fentanyl.
from like a month
and
or two
Mexico is
ago?
working with
Maybe
us to make sure they don't have the technology to be able to put it together. That's what we have to do. We need those machines.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, and again, the question is about Americans in the throes of addiction right now struggling to get the treatment they need.
Well, because this does pertain to it. He ended Remain in Mexico. He ended catch and release. I made it catch and release in Mexico, not catch and release here.
What the fuck are they talking about?
We had so many things that we had done. Hard negotiations with Mexico.
What
and
is
I got
the
it all for
debate?
nothing. It's just
What
like
are they
when you have a
debating?
hostage. We always pay $6 billion for a hostage. Every time we say there's a hostage. Now we have a hostage, the Wall Street Journal reporter. I think a good guy. And he's over there because Putin is laughing at this guy, probably asking for billions of dollars for the reporter. I will have him out very quickly as soon as I take office. Before I take office, I said by literally as soon as I win the election, I will have that reporter out. He should have had him out a long time ago. But Putin's probably asking for billions and billions of dollars because this guy pays it every time. We had 2 cases where we paid $6 billion for 5 people.
This is such a train wreck.
I got 58 people out, and I paid essentially nothing.
I love how the question is
President
still
Trump.
on the
Dana?
screen.
Let's
like,
turn to
what the
concerns
fuck
that
does any of
voters
this have to do with
about each of
addiction?
you.
What does
President
Putin
Biden,
have to do with
you
addiction?
Would be 86 at the end
What?
of your second term. How do you address concerns about your
All right, this'll be
capability
good.
to handle the toughest job in the world well into your 80s?
Well, first of all, I spent half my career being criticized being the youngest person in politics. I was the second youngest person ever elected to the United States Senate, and now I'm the oldest. This guy's 3 years younger and a lot less competent. I think that just look at the record. Look at what I've done.
That's
I've
true.
turned around the horrible situation he left me. As I said, 15 million new jobs, 800,000 manufacturing jobs, more investment in America, over billions of dollars in private investment in enterprises that we are growing. By the way, we brought an awful lot of people. Well, the whole idea of computer chips, we used to have 40% of the market. We invented those chips, and we lost it because he was sending people to find the cheapest jobs overseas and then bring home a product. So I went to South Korea. I convinced Samsung to invest billions of dollars here in the United States, and guess what?
I mean, the
Those
chips
fabs,
thing
they
is
call
like,
them,
I mean,
to-
who
to-
cares?
to-
Like,
to
again,
build
like,
these chips.
really,
Those
we're gonna, like,
fabs
this is
pay
the
over
best thing you can do is,
$100,000.
like, get some
You don't need a
fucking
college
chip
degree for
trade
them.
deal.
And there's billions.
No one gives who
$40
the
billion
fuck cares
already
about
being
the
invested
chips,
and being
dude?
built right
No
now
one
in the
cares
United
about
States,
it.
creating significant
Why don't
jobs
they do
for
something
Americans
that's,
all over from all over the world.
President Biden, you
Helpful?
have 40 seconds left. Would you
Like
like
the
to add anything?
stimulus
Yeah, I
checks,
would.
that was pretty cool.
The idea that somehow we are this failing country. I never heard a president talk like this before. We're the envy of the world. Name me a single major.
I would agree,
country
though, that
president
the United
who wouldn't
States
trade
is
places with the
definitely a
United States of
failing
America.
country. I agree
all
with
our
that.
problems and all our opportunities. We're the most progressive country in the world in getting things done. We're the strongest country in the world. We're a country in the world who keeps our word, and everybody trusts us.
Not
all of
true.
our
None of
allies.
this is true.
And
None of this American
and
rah-rah
those who
bullshit
he
is true at
cuddles
all.
up to, from Kim Jong-un, he sends love letters to, and Putin, etc. They don't want to screw around with us.
Thank you. Former President Trump, to follow up, you would be 82 at the end of your second term. What do you say to voters who have concerns about your capabilities to serve?
Well, I took 2 tests, cognitive tests. I aced them, both of them, as you know. We made it public. He took none. I'd like to see him take one, just one, a real easy one. Like
That
go
would
through
be
the first
funny.
5
I would
questions,
agree.
you couldn't do it.
It would be great
But
to
I
see
took
that.
2 cognitive
Do it
tests. I
live?
took physical exams every year. And, you know, we knock on wood wherever we may have wood, that I'm in very good health. I just won 2 club championships, not even senior, 2 regular club championships. To do that, you have to be quite smart, and you have to be able to hit the ball a long way.
He
And I do
cheats
it.
when he
doesn't
plays
do it. He
golf.
can't hit a ball 50
He's a
yards. He
cheater.
challenged
He
me
just
to a
pays
golf
people
match.
off?
He can't hit a ball 50 yards. I think I'm in very good shape. I feel that I'm as
Why are
in
we
good a
talking
shape
about
as I
golf?
was
What?
25, 30 years ago. Actually, I'm probably a little bit lighter,
No.
but I'm in as good a shape as I was years ago. I feel very good. I feel the same. But I was willing to
The
take a
Ozempic
cognitive
rumors
test.
are true.
And you know what? If I didn't do well, I aced them. Dr. Ronnie Jackson, who's a great guy when he was White House doctor, and then I took another one, a similar one, and one of them
Dr.
said they'd
Ronnie
never seen
Johnson.
anybody ace him.
Thank you. President Biden?
You can see he is 6'5" and only 223 pounds, or 235 pounds. Well, you said 6'4", 200. Well, anyway, that's what you're. Anyway,
We're
just
arguing
take a
about
look at
Trump's
what he
height.
says he
I
is
didn't think this would
take a
happen.
Look at what he is. Look, I'd be happy
That's
to have a
good.
driving contest with him. The reason I got my handicap, which when I was vice president, down to a 6. But by the way, I told you before, I'm happy to play golf if you carry your own bag.
Ooh, do it live.
Think you can do it?
That's the biggest lie that he's a 6 handicap of all.
I was
Now
an
this
8
is
handicap.
amazing. Now this is
Eight.
good. This is good content. I'm not gonna
But I
lie.
have, you know how many?
They're
seen
debating
this
about
swing. I know
golf.
you
This
swing.
is great.
Okay, let's
This
not
is
act like
this is
President
actually
Trump,
really
we're
good.
going to
Let's not act like children.
You
to
are
a
a child.
specific concern that voters have about you.
Uh.
Will you pledge tonight that once all legal challenges have been exhausted, that you will accept the results of this election, regardless of who wins?
All right.
And
Is
you
2024
will say
rigged?
right
Let's
now
find out.
that political violence in any form is unacceptable.
Well, I shouldn't have to say that, but of course I believe that. It's totally unacceptable. And if you would see my statements that I made on Twitter at the time, and also my statement that I made in the Rose Garden, you would say it's one of
Oh,
the
the Rose
strongest
Garden.
statements you've ever seen. In addition to the speech I made in front of, I believe, the largest crowd I've ever spoken to. And I will tell you, nobody ever talks about that. They talk about a relatively small number of people that
gives
went
a
to the
fuck about the
Capitol,
crowd?
and in many cases
Who
were
cares?
ushered in by the police. And as Nancy Pelosi said, it was her responsibility, not mine.
That
She
is
said
true.
that
The
loud and
cops
clear.
were. It was an
But the
inside
answer
job.
is,
January 6th.
If
The
the
cops
election
let them
is
in.
fair,
That is
free,
true.
and I want that more than anybody. And I'll tell you something. I wish he was a great president, because I wouldn't be here right now. I'd be at one of my many places enjoying myself. I wouldn't be under indictment because I wouldn't have been his political opponent. Because he indicted
Trump forgot
me
how to talk.
because I was his opponent. I wish he was a great president. I would rather have that. I wouldn't be here. I don't mind being here. But the only reason I'm here is he's so bad as a president that I'm going to make America great again. We're going to make America great again.
Notice that the
we're
question
a failing nation
was
right
about
now.
the
We're
next
a seriously
election.
failing nation. And we're a failing nation because of him. His policies are so bad. His military policies are insane. They're insane. These are wars that will never end with him. He will drive us into World War III, and we're closer to World War III than anybody can imagine. We are very, very close to World War III, and he's driving us there. And Kim Jong-un
And you want
President
and
Xi
Trump
of
is a
China,
better
Kim
op,
Jong-un
like
of
he's a
North
better
Korea,
driver.
all of these, Putin.
You really would
they don't
rather have
respect
Trump?
him.
I mean,
they don't fear him. They
I don't
have
know. I don't
nothing
think so.
going with this gentleman, and he's going to drive us into World War III.
World War
World War III.
III.
Let him follow and win, and let Putin say, do what you want, NATO. Just do what you want. There's a thing called Article 5.
Oh.
An attack on one is attack on all, and required response. The idea, I can't think of a single major leader in the world who wouldn't trade places with the job I've done and what they've done. Because we are a powerful nation. We have wonderful people. It's because of the people, not me. It's because of the American people. They're capable of anything, and they step up when they're needed. And right now, we're needed. We're needed to protect the world because our own safety is at stake. And again, you want to have a war, just let Putin go ahead and take Kyiv, make sure they move on, see what happens in Poland, Hungary, and other places along that border. Then you have a war.
President Trump, as I come back to you for
What
a
the fuck?
follow-up, the question was, will you
I
accept
don't feel any
the
better
results
about
of
World
this
War III
election,
right now.
regardless of who wins?
Just to finish what he said, if I might, Russia, they took a lot of land from Bush. They took a lot of land from Obama and Biden. They took no land, nothing from Trump, nothing. He knew not to do it.
I love when Trump talks about himself in the third person.
Very well, but he knew not to
nothing
play
from
games.
Trump.
He took nothing from me. But now he's going to take the whole thing from this man right here. That's a war that should have never started. It would have never started ever with me. And he's going to take Ukraine. And, you know, you asked me a question before, would you do this? He's got us in such a bad position right now with Ukraine and Russia, because Ukraine's not winning that war. He said, I will never settle.
I love the question on screen. Will you accept the presidential results regardless?
So many people. It's so
Again,
sad.
what they keep fucking talking about Europe.
They've lost those gorgeous
There's been no fucking, there's been zero motherfucking questions about Europe, and everything goes back to fucking Europe.
Russia would have never
Jesus
attacked.
goddamn Christ.
President Trump, the question was, will you accept the results of the election,
Let's go.
regardless
Will
of
you
who wins?
accept it?
Yes or no, please.
If it's a fair and legal and good election, absolutely. I would have much rather accepted
If I win,
these,
basically.
But
If
the,
I win,
the
I
fraud
accept
and
it.
everything else was ridiculous.
All
And if you
right,
want,
that
we'll have a
counts.
news conference on it in a
That
week.
counts.
Or we'll have another one of
bingo.
these in a week. But I will absolutely, there's nothing I'd rather do. It would be much easier for me to do that.
There's nothing I would rather do.
I'm running again. I wasn't really going to run until I saw the horrible job he did. He's destroying our country. I would be very happy to be someplace else, in a nice location someplace. And again, no indictments, no political opponent stuff, because it's the only way he thinks he can win. But unfortunately, it's driven up my numbers and driven them up to a very high level because the people understand it.
Well, let's see what your numbers are when this election is over. Let's see. You're a whiner. When you lost the first time, you continued, you appealed and appealed to courts all across the country. Not
You're a
one
whiner.
Single court in America.
You're a fucking whiner,
said
man.
Any of your claims had any merit, state or local, none.
That is
You
true.
continued
They were
to
all
promote
bunko.
This lie about somehow there was all this misrepresentation, all this stealing. There is no evidence of that at all. And I tell you what, I doubt whether you'll accept it because you're such a whiner. The idea, if you lose again, you accept it.
He's getting personal.
You can't stand the loss. Something snapped in you when you lost the last time.
We'll be right back with more from the CNN presidential debate.
There's more?
Live from Georgia.
Holy shit. I didn't know that there would be more. Holy fuck. Holy shit, everybody. We got 30 more minutes of this, I think.
C-SPAN Now is a free mobile
Oh,
app
shit, we got
featuring
an
your
app.
unfiltered view of what's happening in
Advertising?
Washington. Live and on demand.
Whoa.
Keep up with the day's biggest events with live streams of floor proceedings and hearings from the U.S. Congress, White House events,
All right.
the courts, campaigns, and more from the world of politics. All at your fingertips.
My
You
opinion
can
so
also
far,
stay
because I'm not
current with
taking
the
a
latest
bathroom break this
episodes of
time.
Washington
But
Journal
my
and find
opinion,
scheduling information for C-SPAN's
this is
TV
so
networks
horrible.
and
I mean, you
C-SPAN
know,
radio, plus
the
a
whole
variety of
thing has
compelling
been really
podcasts.
disastrous.
C-SPAN
My
Now is
favorite part
available
so
at the
far
Apple
has
Store
been
and
the
Google
golf
Play.
debate.
Scan the QR code
I
to
would
download it
love
for
to
free
see them
today,
play
or
golf.
visit
That
our
would be a lot
website,
more entertaining than whatever the fuck this is,
c-span
okay?
now.
So I'm
C-SPAN
pro
Now,
golf
your
debate.
front row seat to
Screw the next
Washington,
debate. Let's just play
anytime,
golf, okay?
anywhere.
Live on television, unedited, real-time golf tournament. That's what I'm into. But what is this thing with Europe and NATO? Who cares about any of this shit? Nobody cares about any of this, and that's really the worst thing. Like like what's got closest to people like caring about is inflation. People do care about inflation, but they didn't say anything that would help. It's just inflation, he did it, and then inflation, he did it. So, other than that, though, it's just a bunch of shit that no one cares about.
I still believe.
But yeah, I think Joe Biden is
Here's the question for the American people.
is not doing
Who do
so
you
well.
trust in this election?
The real choice is whether we will build a bridge to the future or a bridge to the past.
And I have unlimited confidence in the wisdom of our people and the future of our country.
I stand here tonight as my own man.
They had their
What is this
chance.
montage?
They
What
have
is
not
this?
led.
What are they
We
doing
will.
here?
I'm John Kerry.
What is it? Like C-SPAN has got a rare opportunity. It's the presidential debates. People, you know, they don't normally go surfing on C-SPAN, and they use this precious advertising time to display Bob Dole They use this precious moment where they have millions of people watching, and they're like, "Yo, we got Bob Dole. We got tapes of Bob Dole. Tune in tomorrow night." Wow. I mean, I'm just saying, I'm actually kind of impressed.
We will make America safe again. And we will make America great again. If you entrust me with the presidency, I will draw on the best of us, not the worst. This towering American spirit has prevailed over every challenge.
Watch C-SPAN.
The fake, like when Trump is just reading the words, you know.
National Convention starting July 15th, and the Democratic National Convention beginning August 19th. C-SPAN.
I will not be streaming
the conventions.
I'm only streaming the debates, just so everyone knows. I'm not streaming the fucking conventions. I'm not, you know.
Once again, waiting for the
nothing there.
CNN presidential debate between President
it's not on
Biden and
yet?
former President Trump to resume. A reminder that we will get your reaction to what you've seen and heard tonight as soon as the debate is over. Our live simulcast continues from Atlanta in just a moment.
Oh, I'm not gonna lie though, this is hard to watch.
It is now time for the candidates to deliver their closing statements as predetermined by a coin toss. We're going to begin with you, President Biden. You have 2 minutes.
We've made significant progress from the debacle that was left by President Trump in his last term. We find ourselves in a situation where, number one, we have to make sure that we have a fair tax system. I ask anyone out there in the audience or anyone out watching this debate, do you think the tax system is fair?
No,
the
I
fact
don't.
is that I said nobody even
And you
making
didn't fucking fix it.
$400,000 had a single penny increase in their taxes, and will not. And if I'm reelected, that'll be the case again. But this guy has increased your taxes because of the deficit. Number one, he's increased inflation because of the debacle he left after the way he handled the pandemic. And he finds himself in a position where
worse on the
he
pandemic.
now wants to tax you more by putting a 10% tariff on everything that comes into the United States of America. What I did, when, for example, he wants to get rid of the ability of Medicare for the ability us to be able to negotiate drug prices with the big pharma companies. Well, guess what?
I'm not trying to be ableist, but you know.
We got it down to $35 for insulin instead of $400. No more than $2,000 for every senior, no matter how much prescription they need. You know what that did? That reduced the federal debt by $160 billion over 10 years because the government doesn't have to pay.
This is your final message to America.
I'm going to make that available
Yo,
to
man,
every senior.
the deficit, man. It's like a little better than the debt was, and then we had to make sure that the debt is doing. Like, who cares about the debt?
I'm going to make sure we do something about what we're doing on lead pipes and all the things that are causing health problems for people across the country. We're going to continue to fight to bring down inflation and give people a break.
Thank you, President Biden. President Trump, you now have 2 minutes for your closing statement.
Like so many politicians, this man is just a complainer. He said, we want to do this, we want to do that, we want to get rid of this tax,
You're a
that
complainer.
tax. But he doesn't do anything. All he does is make our country unsafe by allowing millions and millions of people to pour in. Our military doesn't respect him. We look like fools in Afghanistan. We didn't stop Israel. It was such a horrible thing that would have never happened. It should have never happened. Iran was broke. Anybody that did business with Iran, including China, they couldn't do business with the United States. They all passed. Iran was broke. They had no money for Hamas or Hezbollah, for terror, no money whatsoever. Again, Ukraine should have never happened. He talks about all this stuff, but he didn't do it. For 3.5 years, we're living in hell. We have Palestinians and we have everybody else rioting.
I think we've been
all over
living
the
in
place.
hell for
You talk
quite a
about
lot longer than
Charlottesville.
3 years.
This is
personally,
100 times Charlottesville.
I think it's been a little bit
1,000 times
longer.
The whole country is exploding because of you, because they don't respect you, and they have to respect their president, and they don't respect you throughout the world. What we did was incredible. We rebuilt the military.
either.
We got the largest tax cut
These
in
people
history, the
fucking
largest
suck.
regulation cut in history. The reason he's got jobs is because I cut the regulations that gave jobs, but he's putting a lot of those regulations back on. all of the things that we've done, nobody's never seen anything like. Even from a medical standpoint, right to try, where we can try space-age materials instead of going to Asia or going to Europe and trying to get when you're terminally ill. Now you can go and you can get something. You sign a document. They've been trying to get it for 42 years. But you know what we did for the military was incredible. Choice for our soldiers, where our soldiers, instead of waiting for 3 months to see a doctor, can go out and get themselves fixed up and readied up and take care of themselves, and they're living. And that's why I had the highest approval rating in the history of the VA. So all of these things, we're in a failing nation, but it's not going to be failing anymore. We're going to make it great again.
Thank you, former President Trump, President Biden. Stay with us because we have full analysis of this debate. Anderson Cooper and Aaron Burnett starts now on CNN.
Are we done? Is that it? Anyway, yeah, you know, that was really underwhelming, you know, being slightly excited to watch that for the last, like, you know, what, 2-3 years. I'm not gonna lie, I was a little underwhelming. But wow, Joe Biden did horrendously. That was really hard to watch. It was just,
You powered throughout states. I want to thank every Olympian and Paralympian. And that was just incredible. And what happened with the Paralympics was so incredible and so inspiring to me. And I watched, it's a little tough to watch too much, but I watched as much as I could. It was really fantastic, and I want to thank you.